Life goals, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
And Robben here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robben Ford. Robben Ford. Wow.
Needless to say, it is a big day at TPS Towers. Robben, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, absolutely. You guys are great.
Man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll try and skip over as much hero worship as possible, because we realise that can be a bit uncomfortable to watch, but you do have to be aware that Robben is one of Dan and mine's guitar playing heroes, genuinely. Let's get that said and we can move on.
All right. Well, thank you.
And we'll say thank you for the inspiration. Dan, you've been working with Robben recently.
I have.
Which is part of the reason we're here.
Indeed.
So one of the things we want to focus on today, Robben has a new board. For those of you who haven't caught up over the last couple of years, there's a new amp on the scene.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through a bunch of guitars and just
have some fun.
Geek out, if that's okay.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, some awesome new online material that you've got. Lots to go over. So, yeah, where do we start?
Why don't we start at Pure?
Cool.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So last studio release and also a live version thereof, or at least inspired by that record.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the things I love about your continuing work, Robben, is always freshness. So with a very long and distinguished career to this point, it would be kind of easy to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And yet I stick on Pure, and then the prelude, the bit that opens it up,
so good,
is a very kind of, and forgive my ignorance, an exotic kind of scale, kind of sound.
Yeah.
And we're hearing whole new delays and reverbs. Is it too wide a question to say inspiration behind that once you get to that record? Where were you when you got there?
Inspiration behind the Pure album?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty easy because I had moved to Nashville in 2017 from California. And my goal was to get off the road, at least for a while, and produce. I wanted to produce records because I love being in the studio. I mean, who doesn't, you know? And being behind the console, not as an engineer, which I am not, but, you know, working with the music, working with the band, you know, and writing for people. I love doing all of that behind the scenes work, you know. So it was starting to really go. And then COVID hit. So I can't produce, you know, I won't name names, but I was working with a couple of very high-end guys. Or should I name names?
If you want to.
It's okay. John Jorgensen,
Okay.
great guitarist, yeah. And Paul Franklin, great steel player with Vince Gill and everybody else, including Dire Straits. Like he was with Dire Straits for a year. Incredible musician. So both these projects were kind of going at the same time. I was writing for Paul, and we were conceiving the music. John Jorgensen and I were in the studio. And COVID hits, and it just stopped, you know. I had produced a record on a young man named Daniel Donato. Have you guys heard of this guy?
Yeah.
Cosmic Country guy.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I produced the album, A Young Man's Country.
Okay.
Nice.
That's the name of the record. And it's really good. It really turned out really well. So anyway, I'm producing, you know, and it's going great. COVID hits and it all goes away. And so I can't produce John. I can't produce Paul. And write, you know, I'm writing. So I go, I guess I'll write for and produce myself. So that was it. It was like, it was the way to stay creative, you know. And so I got in touch with my record company and I said, you guys ready for another one? And they said, yes. And I started writing Pure. And I decided that it was going to be an instrumental album, you know. Because I'd been writing for Paul. I was producing John. And it was all about guitar, all about guitar. And it's created this whole new thing for me, man. I have a whole new, I should say a fresh relationship with the guitar that I haven't had in a long time.
Through working with those guys. because you saw it through different eyes?
Well,
or-
through the focus of just instrumentalists.
Right.
Yeah.
Just all instrumental. I did 2 records with Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Those records were all instrumental music. I'm writing instrumental music. And it just was all about the guitar again, kind of, And it was it just created a really fresh, relationship again to the instrument. Because I have been focused on songwriting for many years.
Yeah.
I pick up the instrument to write a song, not to play the instrument.
Sure.
So this is really wonderful for me. I'm actually very excited about it. And the Pure album was the result of, all right, and let's try to do something different, and we succeeded. Very happy with that
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
There are elements of one of my favorite records of yours, Tiger Walk, as I'm sure it will be with many of you out there watching. And there's elements of that in there. The kind of one of the things I love about the way you approach an instrumental piece is you'll kind of set up a head, maybe, or a theme, and then the theme is set up. Off we go, and we come back to the theme. But the sense of melody in that theme is always paramount, which I guess in a lot of guitar instrumental music could be, shall we say,
Not the focus.
overshadowed by the wish to be flashy, perhaps.
I think one could say that. And yeah, it is. It's always been more about the music, like serve the music has been sort of one of my mottos, just, serve the music. So this song goes like this, that song goes like that.
Yeah.
So you're going to play differently
Sure.
instead of just play all the wonderful things that you know how to do on the guitar.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about some of the? So one of the things I was kind of interested in on the Pure record is all of a sudden I'm hearing maybe some reverbs and delays I hadn't heard before. When did that process start coming to fruition?
It all happened in the studio. That record is the first and only time so far that I have worked in this way. And it was my engineer, Casey Wasner. He and I, co-produced Pure and the Purple House record. And I just went to Casey's place, the Purple House, and had a few ideas. And it's like, okay, boom, tick, boom, tick. There's your drum track. Play a bass line. I can play some bass. I would use keyboards to play bass lines sometimes because it's easier. Put down a guitar, put down another guitar, And so we built the record like that. The whole record was done in that way. And we would send the tracks to drummers,
Oh, wow.
There's 5 different drummers on there, 5 different states. Not literally, but, we sent them to drummers to do that and brought bass players in.
Okay.
To the studio with
Right.
us. It's one guy, everybody's masked up.
Of
course.
course. Yeah.
And we abided by those rules fairly well. And that's how the record was made. So it's like, I really I wanted to use the studio.
Yeah.
So, what can we do here, And we did some really crazy stuff on there, For instance, shall I? May
Please.
I? Okay.
Please.
All right. This song, Dragon's Tail. Yeah, let's see if I can do a little.
Yep.
All right, there's a line. All right, that's the feel. So the line's played like 4 times. It varies on the 4th one. And then the band comes in kind of thing, right? So there's all this space. Clearly there's a full, slow bar, in between lines. So I said, just, because I don't know how to do this stuff, but the idea, I just said, just like turn up a bunch of white noise, and a lot of reverb so that when I hit that last note, it stays in the air. So you hear this thing going on, you know? It's dramatic.
Yeah.
So things like that. And we have a reverb here, the Mint.
Yeah.
Shall I show you something else?
Yeah.
Okay. This is always hard for me to play. I think we overdubbed, we punched in. All that sound that's happening back there,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. I've never really used effects in that way before. So it was like developing kind of a landscape. You know, I do actually have this sort of kind of sense of landscape, like where's the event happening, you know? And so things like that were used to create the landscape. It's like a space, you know, like you're in a three-dimensional world, you know, four-dimensional.
And was that something that you were doing while tracking, or was that something that was done post and you've kind of had to put it back together?
It would go back and forth, you know.
Yeah.
Like I remember not being satisfied with whatever kind of chorusy thing that we were using on the guitar. And this, you know, this sound, when I first started using it, it was sort of too much almost, you know.
You're right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not sure it was Mint. The thing that I'm thinking of, there's another setting, I think, that I used for something else. But it was like, okay, that's what I asked for, and there it is. And I'm like, I'm thinking, no. And then I just went, let's just come back tomorrow. We'll decide tomorrow. Came back the next day. There it was. I loved it, you know, and we used it all over the record from that time on. So, you know, again, open.
Yeah.
You know, just being creative and not saying no unless it was really no.
Sure.
Probably a good time to talk about how this has come together then, because, so Dan, can we tell the story of how you and Robben came to work together?
Yeah. So, Robben, you're doing a gig in London over 2 nights.
Yeah.
And I get a call the morning of the second gig from a mutual friend of ours, Scott McKeon,
Oh, from Scott, yeah.
saying that Robben's had some problem with his pedalboard and could you possibly come down and have a look? So,
Sure glad that happened. Huh?
so
Dan said, I know a guy.
so trottled off to London and we got through that night. The night the pedalboard went down, you plugged into someone else's rig
Yeah.
and got through the gig.
Yeah.
Like a professional. Great. So got the board together and bypassed some stuff that wasn't working, and then Robben got through the gig, and then at the end of the gig we just had a conversation and Robben said, you know what, I've never had a really proper board done. And I'm like, you're kidding me.
No.
That's a crime, and let's make that happen.
Now look what's happened.
That's right.
This is the second iteration, I think, because the first one you did some gigs
It's almost the third.
Yeah, okay.
It kind of is.
Yeah. You did some gigs in, let's say, Denmark recently. Was that
I was in Holland.
in Holland?
Yeah.
And that board was there doing some gigs, and you came back and we added a couple more things on because you're going to be doing a project soon and you want to be able to have access to a few more sounds.
Yeah.
And so we had a mess around with a couple of octafuzzers and some
Bunch of
and a
stuff.
bunch of stuff and some ring modulators, and this is what we've ended up with. And
It's awesome. I still don't quite know how to use it yet, but that was the whole idea.
yeah.
You know, it's the only way you move forward. At least it's the only way I move forward is to put myself in a awkward situation.
Sure.
Yeah, because creativity comes that way. We'll talk about guitars in a sec, because Robben was saying just as we were getting ready to film that, you know, certain guitars are very specifically for specific things. And here when you step on something, presumably it just takes you to a place, and that's what inspires what happens next.
Can.
I'll just one quick point.
Yeah.
Robin asked to try a bunch of overdrives, and with I thought in my wisdom, of course, we'll find some amazing overdrives that Robin's going to love, and found a studio in London, and I took down a bunch, and we were there for hours, and we were A-Bing against the Zendrive. That killed everything.
Yeah.
And
That just really knocked me out. Like, Daniel heard everything that I heard,
Right.
Like, when I would say something, he's like, yeah, you're right, like this. And he agrees
yeah,
that the Zendrive kicked butt.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's been a staple on the floor in front of you for however
At
long.
least 25 years.
Yeah. Could we ask you to play it a little bit and maybe explain a little bit about what it is that it does for you and why you like it?
Yeah, let me get... this is the PRS that Paul Reed has been making for me. We took a long time to develop, and it finally got there. It's the Robben Ford model. It was released as such, limited edition. So there are no more available.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're talking about it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk some more, please? Because I'm...
Oh, well,
You know a guy?
I'm just thinking
Yeah, no, I think that...
how that would work.
Yeah, in all honesty, it's the first PRS I've ever wanted to own.
Huh.
Because...
If you're watching, Paul, please don't take that the wrong way.
No, because they're all amazing, but
Yeah.
with all of the guitars that I've had, I've covered a lot of the ground, but when
Connected.
Robin heard this, it's like, I heard Robin playing this, it's like, there's something in there that I haven't heard in a PRS before, which is...
It's him.
Which is fair enough.
Well,
Fair enough.
I don't know. I would like to think that Paul kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
He got there. It took a long time. The thing about, again, the creative process, I'm just thinking, it's like everybody has their idea of what something is supposed to sound like. And it's like, but that's not the sound that I want. It's like, whoa, how are we going to get there?
Right. Yeah.
So openness, taking time. Zen. That's a big sound.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable.
Look, let's explain what Dan and I are going through at the moment. It's having heard elements of this on records for the last however many decades, to be sat here in front of it, all of a sudden it triangulates and it makes sense. The way that
It made no sense before.
no, but it kind of, it's like that's it in real life. And there's a kind of, there's a vocal quality that you seem to eke out of that kind of sound, which is, violin would be the wrong term, but there's such a harmonic quality in those trebles and high end that makes it really human.
Yeah.
Do Do you know what I mean?
I do. And it's part of that thing we were discussing before, this dynamic thing. Everything, like when I hear you play, there is dynamics and melody and combinations of this, but it's all based around dynamics and melody. It never feels like there's a lick thrown in there for a lick's sake. It's all based around, and that's the human thing, right? That's the vocal thing. It just feels like someone singing on a guitar.
That was always the goal.
Well, you nailed it. It's amazing. And and one of the things that we discovered when we were trying out a bunch of overdrives is that they would either compress too much, they would either fizz out in the top end.
Okay.
If they didn't fizz, they were compressing. The Zendrive had the perfect balance of being direct without any fizz.
Yeah.
It was, and I was really surprised. There was a couple that sounded really good, but felt a bit squishy. But like going back and forth, and I took out big guns.
Yeah.
You know, because I was there to impress. It's like at the end of the day, it's like Robben says to me, "Well, this is why." Still haven't found in 20 years another overdrive pedal that I prefer.
Were you surprised by that, Robben?
Well, I've been looking at overdrive pedals off and on through all of that time.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly kind of knew that nothing was going to do it, but I want it to.
Yeah.
I do. I'm looking for it. If it's out there, man, you know, this is the only one I have, you know, and it's the same one I've been using for, as I say, about 20 years. I had one before that, and someone whose name I won't mention lost it for me. And I liked it better than this one.
Oh, no. Okay.
But, you know, right now it's like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this thing at all. And I can't find anything to even match it.
Yeah. We're going to keep looking, though.
Except the Dumble Overdrive in the amp.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people were kind of referring to this as Dumble in a box, you know?
Okay.
And of course it's not.
No.
But I think it's what you were saying about, you know, either too squishy, too compressed, or too fizzy.
Yep.
It doesn't do that.
No.
And the Dumble, of course, doesn't do that, you know.
And it's when you have someone who is so dynamic, that's when you hear it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's an ecosystem.
It's an,
isn't
exactly,
it?
exactly.
Player, guitar, pedal, amp. That's
It is an ecosystem.
Yeah. I've got a couple of quick questions because I'll find a way to tie it in somehow. We were, going back and listening to your albums, and like going back to Schizophonic, right? The first and the thing is, so that was I think that was in 76.
Have we not talked about this? It would have been 72 or
72
or 3 that it was recorded.
Okay, right.
And
don't trust Wikipedia, kids.
and it was released in 76.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was made as a soundtrack to a B movie.
Oh, okay. Right.
I just kind of came up with some songs, you know, that I was fooling around with, and a couple of jams, you know, and it's like background music to a low budget film.
Okay.
We each got paid $100, and you know, the screen was in front of us, and we just played to the movie.
Amazing.
So it was never meant to be an album.
Okay.
And I was really upset when it came out
Okay.
because it was my first album.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks very much. You know.
Because what I was going to ask is, Inside Story was 78, 79?
Wikipedia says 79.
79? Okay. And there in 79 is a fully formed Robben Ford. It's all there. What got you to a point that early on in your career where it's like you are a fully formed artist?
Well, you know, I don't know that I could answer that. I don't know that I would have thought of myself as a fully formed artist even, you know what I mean? I feel pretty good now after all these years. And and I'm proud of some records that I've made, and I like my work. I know people, they don't like their records, you know. They don't actually like their work, and I've never had that problem.
Okay.
You know, because I just like making music, and then if we get together and successfully make that music, success.
Yeah.
You know, great. You know, and I got to play with these musicians, and we were in a cool studio. And
But you hear that in what you do. You hear the joy in it. And I think, like, for me personally, I was studying music at the time, studying jazz, and trying to appreciate jazz. And every time I heard someone played an alto or a diminished scale, I thought, well, that guy's a jazz guitar player. You were the first person I ever heard playing that stuff that made me think, that's music. And
in other words, not categorized.
no, it was like,
Here's the bridge.
It's like, I'm now going to play outside, and I'm now going to play all the extended things, and there's my alto scale, and you box ticked for that. I'm a professional jazz musician. But when I heard, I remember a guy runs into thing with Talk to Your Daughter. He said, oh, you'll love this. And I put it on, and I listened the whole way through, and there are things like, I heard Revelation. No piece of music had ever made me feel at that point the way Revelation, when I heard that for the first time.
Cool.
Because it had joy in it. It was, you know, it was a rock tone in a major key that was beautiful, like, and it had those inflections of harmony, but there was nothing about it that was clever. It was just musical.
Beautiful.
And this is why an entire generation of people is out there going, how do you play the altered scale? Because they hear you do it and you make it sound so good. And I mean, that's a question. How did you get to that point where you could take jazz influence and it not just be jazz for jazz's sake, it actually becomes really musical?
You know, I think I can actually answer that question. The blues has you know, as you know, there's kind of a lot of, it's a broad playing field, you know, because you can play over the bar. You know, you're not relegated to straight eighths, you know, like in bebop or something. You know, there's a lot of attention to ding, 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 you know, that kind of thing. That's what they used to call it in LA, straight eighths.
Right. Okay.
Straight eighths, you know. And so anyway, growing up as a blues guitar player and playing in that way, I was always playing over the bar.
Right.
Right? So I'm really just trying to find notes that I like sound good, you know, right here, right now. And it was not, you know, relegated to that strict, you know, 16th note, 8th note, you know, quarter note, bar line thing. So the blues it's just the best place to start on the guitar as far as I'm concerned, because it's pretty easy, you know, to understand. You know, playing it is more difficult and easier for others, and that's just person to person. But the sense of the blues and the way the blues is very much a vocal music, you know, very much, right? It is Absolutely. A singing, you know, kind of a thing. So what I did when I started learning altered scales, because everything else is diatonic, right? So when I started learning altered scales, I played them the same way that I played the blues. I just I didn't have a teacher. No one was giving me exercises. Right. I just knew, okay, those notes, you know, and here's where they are. And I just play them, just like you play the pentatonic scale. So it had the same thread of singing, vocal quality, you know, expressing yourself. It's just funny sounding notes, you know, or different sounding notes. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
That is the thread. It's that, you know, playing it exactly as I played the blues or anything else that I could play. You know? I was always just trying to play something that I liked the sound of. I liked the melody of it, you know, the relationship of the notes to the chord, you know?
Yeah.
That whole
Does that make sense?
Totally.
It makes perfect sense, because what's leading you is the sound you want to hear, not I need to get my head around this theory.
Yeah.
And perhaps now would be a good time to ask a question from our good friend Simon Jarrett. Hello, Simon, if you're watching this. I reached out to Simon because he's a huge fan of Robben as well. And perhaps this could encapsulate something of what we were talking about. Simon is interested in... So it's going to get a bit technical here, people. Essentially, exactly what Dan just said, that the bridge between jazz and blues, which might be a reductive way to put it, but specifically, he says the way in which you use the diminished to go from 1 to 4 in a blues type progression. Could you expand on that a little bit, please?
Sure. And I'll do it in a slow blues. It's hard to do in a fast blues.
Yeah.
And let's see what we can do here. So, it off just a little bit. Okay. So if we're playing a blues in E, you know, it's nice because we have the open strings, right? Is that where you want the level?
Is that okay?
It just means we can do the mic thing without having to worry about that stuff.
Gotcha. So... So that was the diminished scale. I mean, I played I think that's what I did. Right? So, diminished scale is half step, whole step, right? Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. If you just do that, you're on the third of A. Something like that. So I just basically walked up the scale, I think. Same thing. There's a triad. So that's E7. To A. That was diminished. So minor thirds. Whoops. That sounds like A, right?
Yeah.
But it's also E.
Yeah.
Right? E diminished, but it's... Yeah, all of those are E to E diminished. But it also sounds like A.
Yeah.
A diminished. So finding the triads, anything in the key, anything diminished, moves in minor thirds. So you can go. I just played B flat 7. And if I can do that, I can do it in D flat too. It's D flat to A. And again, the thread is that I'm playing it as a singing line.
Yeah.
It's always there's always that connection.
You're hearing that line. Are you hearing everything before it comes out?
Not necessarily.
Right.
It starts to happen. You start to hear it. You know, I just go places.
Yeah.
I love not knowing what's going to happen next. because it doesn't take me long to find where to go next.
Okay.
But I just hang myself out there, you know. So the first thing tells me the second one. Oh, am I going to go? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. So that's thematic, right? And then at some point, there's just, it's time for something different. You know, it's at a certain point, it's like, okay, let's double that up, or let's play that in triplets, or, you know, but it's always this, you know, developmental process. And there's fundamentally 7 notes, 8 notes, 8 notes to the octave.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of information that you really have to know. 2 altered scales.
Yeah.
Diminished and half diminished, and then the whole tone. But that's, you know, what do you do with the whole tone scale? You know, it's not a very musical.
Prog is what you do with whole tone.
Do they do it?
I guess so.
It's okay on a 5 chord, but it's inhibiting.
Sure. I guess you wouldn't necessarily use the term voice leading when it comes to what we were just talking about, but that use of the diminished from 1 to 4,
very much,
it just sets you up for the 4, doesn't it? And
yeah.
I'm sure that the theorists among you, and indeed Robben, will know the reasons why, but this is set down in stuff we've been listening to for eons. And so by doing that, and perhaps it tees in a little bit to what you were saying about playing across the bar, because you have that freedom to go, this is what's coming, and I'm going to tell you it's coming by doing this.
Yeah.
And that's the melody, I guess.
It is.
We could do this all day. It's anyone that wants to dive into this deeper. I mean, Robben has been producing incredible tuition stuff for years, and has Guitar Dojo.
Robben Ford Guitar Dojo.com.
So we'll put the links below, but you must check it out. It is fantastic. I will be signing up as soon as I get home, and that will be the rest of 2024 for me. Spent on your website.
If I might just add something to that, like the thing there are a couple of things that are very unique about the dojo. I don't see it anywhere else, you know, and a big part of it is the focus on being musical, the focus on being able to make music right now. Like quickly, you know, you can find yourself doing things quicker than you maybe thought you could. And most importantly is we do a live Zoom hang every week. And, you know, we got
that's amazing.
All these faces on the screen, man, and we're talking to each other live, you know, answering questions. I demonstrate things. So anyone is welcome to engage, you know. And
you're going to need a bigger screen, Robben.
And the dojo people, you know, the people who are in the dojo, the subscribers, you know, we call them students because they're interacting all amongst themselves now.
Cool. That's so cool.
There's something called Discord that we use to, it's a place where all the dojo people can, you know, relate to each other.
Yeah.
It's very funny because our man Alberto Pacini, very good guitar player, but he's doing a lot of social media stuff for us now. You know, he was the one who had the idea, and he said, Robben and Kelly, I think we could bring the dojo together through Discord. I'm like, well, that's an interesting concept you got there, Alberto. It's like, oh no, it's a platform. He didn't even know what it meant.
Okay.
You know, he's Italian, so he didn't even know what it meant. What is Discord?
Brilliant.
E flat. Check it out, robbenfordguitardojo.com. If you want to, that stuff that we just talked about, get really deeper into that and glean some knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm still halfway through chord chemistry on TrueFire, I think. So.
All right.
Where you were talking about triads earlier.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowingly mind-opening.
Yeah.
I will say.
But yeah, I'd never really wanted to learn that stuff till I heard you play it.
All right.
Yeah, it's truly amazing.
Thank you, man.
I think we need to look at some guitars.
Yeah, some guitars and take in the pedalboard and amps along the way.
How awesome is this thing?
We started with that amazing Epiphone. Oh, sorry. Do you want to talk
Should
about
we
that?
say something about the little Walter?
yeah.
Okay. So I've been using the Dumble Overdrive Special for almost the entirety of my career. And
There is another video on that, people. Just
all right. Yeah. And the only recently, over the last couple of years, well, starting with my album Purple House, right? The last two records I did that were studio albums. We were in a small space. We were working in kind of tight quarters, you know, and everything's sounding great except me. And, you know, I've got the Dumble, you know, 100 watt 2x12 in a closet over here, you know, and it's like, it's not working, man. That's not good. We have to do something different. And I finally went, I guess I have to start using smaller amplifiers. So that was the beginning. For me, I mean, everybody else knew this already. You guys knew it in 2017. You already knew it. I did not know it. It's like small room. Maybe smaller amp. You know?
Right.
I would show up to sessions with the Dumble Overdrive Special, man. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing almost when I think about it now.
Oh, no, it's just cool. It's so cool.
Well, so that's when I started looking at smaller amplifiers, you know. And the Purple House record was done on, I used a vintage Blackface Pro reverb for the rhythm tracks.
Yep.
And I used a reissue Vibrolux. Did you ever see those ones with the white knobs? They only made it like for a year and a half or something like that. That amp, I just cranked it all the way up, and that's how I took my guitar solos. But the Pure album we were discussing earlier, was done with that head, which is a Little Walter 50 watt head, and a single 12. I don't even know what the speaker was. It belonged to Casey, my co-producer, engineer. So a 50 watt head, and it was like a 30 watt speaker, you know, in an odd cabinet. And that's how most of Pure was cut. So I had finally found a way, you know, to tone down, and started feeling the need to tone down live, you know, as well. So fortunately, I met Phil Bradbury from Little Walter. I think Vince Gill told me about him, introduced me when I was living in Nashville still. And we had become friends. And Paul Franklin also was using the Little Walter. And I'm like checking it out. And man, I mean, just even today, I'm just like so happy with what we're hearing here. This amp sounds good. And it's a 2x12, and they're different speakers.
Right.
So they're
Mismatched.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's him, you know, finding the right two speakers to do this and that. And with his amps, it truly works.
So was the inspiration to try and get the sound of the Dumble at the lower volume, or actually just go in a different direction?
Well, you know, you can't get the sound of a Dumble at a lower volume, right?
Amen, brother.
You heard it here, people. we've been saying it for years. He's been doing it for longer.
Yeah, it's just not possible. And again, I learned that,
Yeah.
you know, in the studio first, you know.
Right.
And it's like, okay. And I started, you know, just ears, you know, like wanting to kind of get my volume down. It happens to everyone at some point. And wow, so glad to have met Phil Bradbury. And he's just making incredible amplifiers.
Do you use it in a clean setting, or is there an overdrive?
It has
there as
no
well?
overdrive.
Okay, so it's just clean with pedals.
Yeah.
Maybe we hear it a little bit then. I'm going to peer around the back for interest.
All right. You want me to play through it?
Yes, please.
Okay. You know, I'm kind of a treble pickup guy. Zendrive. That was a new note. There was an altered scale on a 4 chord. Play the scale. So that's another thing. People are afraid to play the scale. Just play the scale. It's good.
It doesn't sound like that when we do it.
But it can. Shall we hear the other Paul Reed?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just we don't have to.
No, please. No, because this is
potential point of
fascinating.
interest.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. So this is an absolute duplicate of the other guitar, but the other guitar is using an aluminum tailpiece.
Mm-hmm.
This is brass. The aluminum also has a little brass. Have you know those things?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little brass insert.
The inserts, yeah.
Yeah. This is just stone brass.
But everything else is identical.
Absolutely identical.
Can we start with the Zendrive on? Because that's where we were.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Hold on. It's a real different sound, right?
Yeah.
It seems a lot louder, a lot
Yeah.
more kind of in your face.
It's incredible.
And that's the only difference.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Pickups the same height, everything else the
Absolutely.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a look at the pickups, and it was kind of dramatic, wasn't it? That rhythm with the overdrive.
Dramatically different.
I know.
That's amazing.
I was blown away, and I'm gonna keep it like this.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I like each for a different thing.
Paul, that's the one I want. Just letting you know.
Brass.
That's amazing.
Well, the reason this whole thing even was an issue, first of all, I loved the tailpiece, you know, when Paul first started sending me guitars. And it was aluminum. And he told me everybody thinks that they were steel, I think. But he said all of the early 50s Les Pauls, you know, they're aluminum.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
They are light, right?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah, yeah,
tailpieces are light, the wraparounds and
Yeah.
all that.
Well, on
Yeah.
my 61,
You know what? The posts are different too.
Okay.
Oops.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So because that's the wraparound thing, it doesn't have any compensation. And I thought I must try some bridges with compensation. And everything just took away the magic from this
Made
guitar.
it sound worse.
But that's a really light aluminum
Yeah.
thing.
So you went back.
Just
clearly.
went back to the what I came with.
I wonder if I could hear that.
Yes, you can.
I just it's
Sounds
really
incredible.
beautiful. Just beautiful. Hit the Zen. All you need.
One pickup in the truth, right?
Yep.
Well, that you mentioned earlier, you're a bridge pickup kind of guy.
Yeah, I've really moved there.
One of the questions I had was about the 1960 Tele. So, is this the guitar you have the longest?
Do you mean this Tele?
I do.
I'll tell you right there.
Is this the guitar you have the longest association with?
Can we grab that?
Yes.
That same strap. Yes, it is. And just I can't believe it myself, because I remember being a kid. My father, he showed me my first chorus. He played and sang, and he went up to visit some friends where he used to live as a young man, and one of them was a guitar player who had opened a music store. This is in Antioch, California, which is way up northern California. And so I guess he lived up there for a while. And this young man, he said he used to stand over his shoulder and watch him play the guitar and stuff. And he sort of started learning a bit from my dad.
Right.
So he was grown up and had a music store in Antioch, guitar shop. And we went, and it was after hours. And there were all these guitars on the wall. I didn't have an electric guitar, And the Telecaster, I saw a Telecaster kind of virtually for the first time, And I thought, that is the ugliest guitar I have ever seen in my life. Who thought of that? And I'm like 12, So Telecaster was the last thing on my mind. And every time I'd pick up a Stratocaster, they just felt like, just pieces of wood. They didn't seem like guitars to me.
Right.
So I liked hollow body, semi-hollow. So anyway, I walked into a music store, the Blue Line. We were on the road, and I was playing the Robben Ford, Ultra Esprit.
Yep.
And we went into a music store. It was the only guitar I was using. And I went to get guitar strings. Really good old vintage music store, it turned out, and I looked to my left, and there's this guitar just sitting over there. And it was like, somehow, I had to go check it out, because it was Bloomfield's, instrument on the first Butterfield record. So I went, I picked it up, I started playing it. It's like, this is the best guitar I've ever played, so I had to buy it. And I've gone through so many guitars over the years, man. Not because I want to. I have to. And this one, as you were saying, the longest, how did you put it?
The
longest
guitar you have
association.
the longest association with, I think is what I said.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned about the bridge pickup. We know all about that. You can set me straight on this, Robben, because I don't know by listening to it. But if something like the kind of main theme from Freedom or Oasis on Tiger Walk, that to me sounds like a neck pickup kind of deal.
It does.
And is it?
It is not a Tele.
Right.
Yeah. It that sound is kind of there. Oasis is it's a 57 Strat rhythm pickup.
That's why I like it so much.
And Freedom is a 55 Les Paul P90s on the rhythm pickup.
So it's the.
But let's see what the. But this is the guitar that. That's on a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of highs coming out here.
That is
all day.
You know that
Ace.
tune?
I don't.
Oh, no? Love and Cup.
Okay.
So I've played it a billion times. It's a Paul Butterfield recording. And we did record it. I think it's on Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
But I've played it many times live. It's just a good rockin' thing.
Awesome.
Jake knows it. There's some altered. Tele.
That's the one.
Viewer-
That's amazing.
Viewers, when you watch this for the 5th time, which I know you're going to, please pay extra special attention to what's going on with Robben's right hand. There is a thing that is presumably absolutely second nature to you at this point, where the amount of information coming off both the position, the angle of the pick, and the power of the stroke is phenomenal. The level of dynamic
Yeah, that's it.
from that. There's almost like a rake you do when you strum,
Yeah.
which gets a much softer sound, so you're not hitting the strings square on. But then when you want to,
It's
square
there.
on, and it hits you in the face. It's
So cool, man.
it's
so
Thank you.
cool.
a masterclass all in itself.
It just is.
Even
It
without-
just is.
Thank you.
even without worrying about this.
Just a quick thing. That's a slap that's basically is more or less on most of the time.
Yeah, pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a great sound. There's going to be people asking what this is. So this is a
Oh, man.
small MIDI controller.
This is some of Daniel's amazing work that he did building this pedal board for me.
Well, basically, Robben wanted access to 4 different delay sounds,
Okay,
right? And that's it. So I got a really simple MIDI controller.
so that's what that's doing.
And all this is accessing 4 delay sounds from here.
4 presets.
If there was an extra button on the timeline, would have been fine. But what?
On the timeline, huh?
No, we would have needed 2 extra buttons because there's a tap tempo, but we could have modded that to a preset.
Right.
Anyway, what Robben didn't want to be doing was banking up and banking down to trying to find sounds.
Yeah.
4 delay sounds.
Yeah.
So here we've got that slap. There's a longer delay here, and then we get to Minty and some other stuff. But quick question, where would you go from that slap back to a longer delay?
Where would I use it, you mean?
Where would you use a longer delay sound?
Well, I will try it on something, like Freedom or something, a
Right.
slow,
Yeah.
so there's time to hear it,
Okay.
right? If you're playing quickly, what's the point? So,
Kids.
but what almost always happens these days, I mean, just more and more, it's like, I use the short delay just to give myself a little bit more meat in the sound. It's just to kind of broaden the note make it a little bigger. And I pretty much live there anymore, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the longer delays, I figure every now and then I'm going to want it, but I always go back.
Yeah, yeah.
And the minty thing, you know, that's just like, yeah, let's get some ambience going.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of fooled around. I think after the last time I saw you in Hampstead at the other house, a distorted sound.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And
There's a lo-fi delay sitting on here that does all the distorted delays and stuff.
Maybe
really
we can
fun.
look at that.
Yeah, totally.
And find something.
Well, let's have a look at, because Robben here, and there's some other guitars I really want to hear.
It might be a segue to talking about other guitars. I'm fascinated in that relationship between solid body, semi-hollow, and hollow body, because it seems that you love each. What's the journey there? How would you play a solid body or a semi-hollow like a 335 or a completely hollow guitar? How did that journey evolve?
Should we switch to like the
That would be
335?
great.
Yeah.
Because the 335 is the coolest 335 as well.
It's pretty hip.
It's great. So this
Yeah.
is,
It's a real favorite.
so it's a 335 that's been converted from a 12 string.
Yeah.
The headstock is just so cool.
Yeah, that's something right there.
It's amazing.
Because anybody who sees it goes, what?
But it's just the nut and the bridge, right? Everything else is,
Yeah.
they didn't have special 12 string pickups. They're just
No.
now.
Oh, really?
No.
And what year is that one, Robben?
This is a 66.
Yeah.
And I bought it from Roscoe Beck. Do you know who Roscoe
yeah.
is? Yeah. Bass player with the blue line.
Yeah.
So he owned it, and I happened to be in Texas and visited him, and he had it sitting around the house, and I picked it up. And I'm like, man, I've been wanting the 12 string, you know? So would you be willing to sell this? And he goes, yeah. And he said $2,500. I'm like, Roscoe, no, that's not enough money, you know? And he goes, nope, I just want to get what I put into it. So he had bought it for $2,500. Let's add some inflation, you know, it's at least $3,000, you know? And so I insisted on giving him $3,000 for it. Okay, yeah, let's hear this one, because this is just such a pretty guitar. Just want to play this guitar, you just want to play it gently, you know, the way it's set up.
Yeah.
And the strings are quite close to the fretboard, right? These things, you know, they make it very hard to dig in, as you guys know. It's this kind of a situation. I don't want to change it. You guys know that? The Renegade Creation.
Oh, okay.
I just love that sound.
It's so good.
It's bright.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like it pops.
Yeah,
It's
it's not trash,
clear. It's just beautiful, right?
Yeah, amazing.
I love the treble pickup. get that funky, gritty shit. Pardon my French.
No, no.
That's
So,
You know, I'm hearing in common with the Dumble is that harmonically the amp is open, and so when you play anything that has some dissonance, it comes together in the most beautiful way.
Yeah.
And there's such a relationship going on between what's coming out the amp and the guitar that it's creating all this stuff.
yeah.
That is, yeah, it does have that in common with the Dumble.
Yeah.
I would
Right?
say.
Yeah. Shockingly, you know.
Do you think it's possible to learn to play like that dynamically without volume?
Without volume? What do you mean?
Because
Just sitting here like this?
no, I just mean that
Oh, without being loud.
without being loud. Do
Yeah, probably.
you reckon?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it is.
I mean, it's not going to have the same impact.
No, because it feels to me like there's 6 horn players here,
Yeah.
and it's going, and it's like it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do it being really quiet and then just a little bit quieter. You know what I mean? The impact it has, bang! It's just amazing.
Yeah. You need volume for that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. If you listen to a big band, they are loud.
Oh yeah.
That's some loud stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's brass, you know, and the readiness of the saxophones, you know. That's part of that. I think when we were talking about overdrive, I think, you know, where you get that clarity and yet you have the grit, but you have absolute clarity at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like trumpets and tenors.
Yeah.
It's reedy and it's brassy, you know.
Yeah. Sax almost has a built-in overdrive, doesn't it? The way it rasps. Because that was a big influence for you early doors, wasn't it? Sax.
Always listening, you know. I mean, I did play it, but I can't honestly say that it influenced my playing because I just never was that good. And but I listened to saxophone players way more than guitar players.
Wow.
Way more. You know.
Some faves.
Oh, sure. You know, Coltrane, of course.
There you go.
Wayne Shorter. Archie Shepp, and a lot of people do not know who Archie Shepp is, but he made great records on Impulse. Coltrane was the guy who got Archie Shepp signed to Impulse Records.
Right.
So it's that 60s period, which is the best period in jazz, I think. And Wayne Shorter I mentioned. I listened to a ton of Yosef Lateef. I listened to a ton of Roland Kirk, and the early Ornette Coleman, which is on the alto, you know. But I probably stopped listening to him in the 70s. I didn't continue to buy his records. But yeah, Coltrane, Wayne Shorter, Archie Shepp, Roland Kirk, Yosef Lateef. Those are my...
And if you're listening to that stuff, some of that harmonic information has to go in, doesn't it? It has to go in.
Yeah. And the dynamics. And
Yeah. Because you're
take the blinkers off, people.
not
That's
listening to 145 there.
man.
Do you use overdrive with this guitar, Robin, or is it a clean guitar?
I have never recorded with it.
Oh, okay.
And I tried it when it was still a 12, you know, and hung it on the wall. It was, you know, it didn't work as a 12-string guitar. It just didn't work, man. There's nothing you could do. You know, it's a nice idea, beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was just hanging on the wall at Casey's for about 2 months during the making of the Pure album, and I just went, screw it, took it off the wall, you know, like take all these strings off, and I made it a 6, and it's like, I love this guitar, you know.
Do you ever get confused about which are connected?
Of course. Oh yeah, that is a daunting thing, actually. Say 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Back with the Robben Ford PRS.
Yeah, so we're going to just hear a few things on the board and maybe conclude this video. There will be a separate video featuring the Dumble and the Epiphone that we saw at the beginning of this show, just just to say that. Are you? So this is an experimentation kind of board, then, Robin, like you said earlier. How deeply have you got into any of this stuff so far?
I haven't even had it. So and I was when I was traveling, it was just it was great. I did take it with me when I went to Holland, and it was fantastic for that week for me. And we just had a little further to go.
Yeah, yeah. I went down and Robin says it's all great, but I want to add a couple of things. So,
this was your idea.
That's the MIDI controller. Well, Robin gave me another timeline and said I want 4 presets.
I see.
But it would have meant turning one of the presets off on one of the timeline and turning the other ones on. And I thought we can do better as well, saving a little bit of space. But one thing, the gig I saw of you in London when I did the board, and I heard you play a Pog for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah. Can we hear a little bit of that?
Yeah, for sure. So, for me, the Pog, it allows me to play in kind of more of a bebop fashion.
Right.
It's just somehow, just the way it feels when I hit a string and the way it responds, You know what I mean? Chords don't necessarily work so well with that low thing. It kind of blurs out.
Still pretty cool though.
It's super organy as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the, and it also sounds kind of like a
Steel drum.
Of course.
So I just turned off the low end. You can kind of play chords a little better.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love that low sound too. Okay.
Killer. Octafuzz?
Yeah, now these are the things that I'm learning about. I think we kind of got somewhere, didn't we, a little earlier?
We did. This sounds
I think we were fooling around with this, right?
more chords. Chords are cool.
But that,
Yeah.
as we alluded earlier, it kind of takes you to that place,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
It's
It
a
says,
different thing.
I want something discordant. I want something ugly at this point.
Yeah.
Is it?
Just
Ugly beauty.
yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So good.
Dare we go near the ring modulator, or are we?
Let's do it,
we
because I
dare.
want to.
Yeah.
I want to hear it. That's where it takes me.
Yeah.
Right now. But I'm going to, those are the pedals that I need to learn.
Yep.
You know.
So what was interesting about the Ring Mod is we had a couple of different things we're fooling around with, but as soon as Robben plugged into the
Fairfield.
Randy's
Yeah,
Revenge,
yeah,
the
yeah,
Fairfield, it was like, that's it. That's just, there's something musical and sort of instant. It's like, okay, yep, stick that on the board, and
Which one are you?
that's that one.
Yeah.
The Ring Mod. There's
That's
a couple of
the
different
Ring
ones.
Mod.
Yep.
And
that's
this one.
the octophones.
How about this?
That's the Monk.
Oh,
That was
right.
the tremolo.
Harmonic
What's
trim.
that?
That's
Boost.
the booster.
And that is here.
That's there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there we
yeah.
go. It's a great sound, man.
So and of course there's a boost, and we tried a bunch of different boosts and ended up here, and that is might get a little bit loud. I'll turn it up very gradually, but
You know what that really worked for a lot with was the Tele.
yeah, right.
But we can stay here, I guess. I like it with the Tele. Is that because the Tele's just got that extra brightness?
Yeah,
And that thing really works great. That's jam, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I've had some surreal days in life to this point. This is definitely up there.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Robben, thank you so much
Oh, my great pleasure.
for indulging us.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And
seriously enjoyed it.
So much fun.
I'm living in London now, as you know. And
Yeah.
so it's great to have been introduced to you chaps. 'Cause your show is great, and
thank
you've
you.
been incredible help for me, on
man.
this. So thank you.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
For those of you out there watching, I mean, hopefully that means we get to see Robben play more on these shores, which is always a great pleasure. We'll put links and stuff to everything we've discussed today, but also to things like show date, tour dates, and all that kind
You've
of
got
thing.
some gigs coming up.
Yes, I'm in Austria and Germany, late April into early May.
Right.
Yeah, it's about 7 shows.
Okay.
And the last show is in Normandy in France.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep the link up there though,
Yeah,
so you can see where Robben's playing next.
links below.
Is that a good chord voicing?
Yeah. Come on. Amazing.
It's not exactly incorrect.
Cool. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All the usual stuff. Links below. Robben, thanks again so much.
Pleasure.
you, buddy.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
an education.
Yeah.
Would you like to play us out?
How's that?
Perfect.
Couldn't
Perfect.
be better.